Today we're going to show you the fastest and absolutely best way to get your rifle spot on sighted in. It requires a little ballistics knowledge and 2 portable target stands. First, a little ballistics education. The line of sight, looking through your scope, of course, is a perfectly straight line to the target. However, the bullet travels in a curved path, and in your typical rifle, with the scope mounted 1.5 inches above the bore line, the first point where the bullet intersects the line of sight, which is called the near zero, is 25 to 30 yards from the muzzle. The next point is the far zero, which is some point further down range. We're not too concerned with the far zero today. Our main concern is the near zero. Later on in this video, when we set up the field demonstration, you will see that we have 2 targets set out. One at 27 yards from the muzzle and one at 100 yards from the muzzle. It's pretty clear that to get the bullet on the paper at 27 yards is a lot easier than doing it at 100 yards. With that thought in mind, we set up our gun, aim at the center of the target, take 1 shot. From that shot, we adjust our scope to move the point of impact to exactly dead center of the target. One thing you may want to note is that your typical scope is going to have 1/4 MOA adjustments, which means that it will move the point of impact 1/4 of an inch at 100 yards. However, when you're sighting in at the near target, since this is going to be basically 25% of that distance, you need to increase the number of clicks by a factor of 4. In other words, you need 16 clicks to move the point of impact 1 inch at 25 yards as opposed to 4 clicks to move it at 100 yards. We take our first shot at the near target, noting where the shot impacts the target, and then we adjust the scope so that the point of impact and point of aim are exactly the same and the shot falls dead center on the target. Now we're ready to take a shot at the distant target, which is 100 yards out. In the exercise, we're using a 300 Win Magnum, and we take our shot and we find that on the second target we're exactly 2¼ inches high. What this means is that 100 yards distance we need to aim 2.25 inches low to hit dead center on the target elevation wise. But the neat thing here is that we can now put a target out at 150, 200, or 250 yards and then record exactly where the bullet impacts, and this will tell us how high or how low we need to shoot at those ranges to impact dead on. The handy thing to do at this point is to make a range card. Indicate your distances and the plus or minus elevation to shoot at that distance. Of course, this will always be dependent upon using exactly the same ammunition and bullet weight fired from the same gun. As you know, there are several ways to sight in. Typically, somebody sits down with 2 or 3 boxes of ammo, sets the target out at 100 yards, shoots to the 4 corners to try to get it on the paper, and then finally we get it on the paper, they start making their adjustments, and if they're lucky, 2 to 3 boxes of ammo, and they're done and sighted in. The way we're going to do it today is to use the near zero to get us sighted in at the near zero point, and then we're going to do our come up at 100 yards. Before we start the process, you have to go over a few obvious things. Number 1, make sure that your scope is properly mounted, the rings are concentric, and everything is properly anchored, torqued to the right torque spec, and held in place with Loctite. Step 2 is to remove the bolt, get behind the gun, and bore sight the gun, making sure that the center of the bore is dead on the target, and then align your scope so that also is on the center of the target, and then reconfirm. After that, you're ready to move on to the next step. Just as a point of reference, the near zero is the first point where the trajectory of the bullet crosses the line of sight. Keep in mind, the line of sight is straight and the trajectory of the bullet is a curve. So the near zero is the first point where the path of the bullet crosses the line of sight. Typically, on a rifle with the scope mounted 1.5 inches above the center of the bore, this is about 27 yards out, which is where we put our first target. The far zero, oddly enough, is the point where the bullet crosses the path of the line of sight downrange. We're not going to worry about that at this point because we're more concerned with fixed points and known range distances, in this case 100 yards. Okay, now we know about the near zero. First thing we do after we've been bore sighted is we load one round and we take a shot at the target, which is at 27 yards, and when we see where the bullet hits, we adjust so we get the point of impact and point of aim the same. This means that downrange, the point of impact at the far zero, elevation-wise, will be exactly the same. Windage, of course, we can't control. But today is a calm day, so we don't have to worry about it. Okay, we bore sighted, and we've taken our ranging shots at 27 yards. And here you can see that we got one dead center, which is just where we want to be. And now we're able to take our shots at the 100-yard target and see exactly what our come-ups are and adjust our sights accordingly. Okay, here's our 100-yard target, one shot, and as you can see we are about 2¼ inches high at 100 yards. What this means is that if you're shooting a target at 100 yards, aim 2¼ inches low and you'll be right on the money. The next steps in this exercise, which we are not going to do but should be obvious, are to put this target out at 150, 200, 250, and 300 yards and measure the offset in elevation, and then you'll know your come-ups at those particular ranges and you know exactly where you have to aim to hit dead on. This demonstrates the value of having portable target stands where you can set up your 27 and 100 to 300 yard range targets so you can get a clear picture of exactly how your gun and ammunition are performing.